In the news tonight, a test for Fiji's health system. Police enforce social distancing. And GPs step up to offer services in the West.
From the studios of FBC Suva, Edwin Naka.
Hello, Naka Fiji. We again expect Dr. James Fong to deliver his daily COVID-19 briefing later this evening, and FBC News will bring you live coverage. But for now, we join Koroi Tandulala live at the Health Ministry, standing by for the COVID-19 press conference at the Ministry headquarters. Koroi, what can we expect in the announcement tonight?
Edwin, what we do know is that the whole of Lautoka area is a high-risk area, and then the whole of Lautoka Hospital is under lockdown. Earlier today, government teams completed 150 bed-filled hospitals, which will start seeing patients who would have otherwise visited the Lautoka Hospital. We expect Dr. Fong, the Permanent Secretary for Health, to provide more update later tonight. We also learned that the Kamikamica Hospital in Lautoka, which was set up to run 24 hours to cover for the loss of services, has been closed since this morning. We also hope to learn why during the briefing. Another matter of concern that we want to highlight is that some people that we've noted today are still not adhering to the COVID-19 safety measures issued by the Ministry of Health and the relevant authorities, and some are not taking the risk posed by COVID-19 seriously. However, more details will be revealed later tonight when Dr. Fong provides his COVID-19 update. Edwin.
Nakakoroi. The current outbreak of COVID-19 in the country ultimately tests Fiji's health system and its ability to manage the spread of the virus. The Professor of Public Health at the University of Otago in Wellington, New Zealand, is confident that Fiji, despite its limited health resources, will be able to contain the spread of the virus. Koroi Tandulala reports this will require everyone to play their part.
Professor Michael Baker says they are keeping a close tab on the spread of the virus in Fiji. Professor Baker says it is critical for Fiji to trace and identify all unknown line of transmission in order to curtail the spread of the virus locally.
It will take several weeks because they have unknown lines of transmission. Even if with good contact tracing, they will still need some kind of lockdown, which I think they're implementing at the moment. And that, again, as we know, takes several weeks.
While commending Fiji's effort in being a COVID-contained country for a year, Professor Baker also highlighted the need to get the virus under control as soon as possible.
It does mean you have to really pay attention to travel restrictions because you don't want the virus to be transmitted or carried from the towns into these isolated communities where it could be really devastating.
Fiji's Ministry of Health says they will continue to screen and swab as many people as possible and implement stricter measures if the need arises in order to stomp out COVID-19 from our community. Koroi Tandulala, FBC News.
Raiwai and Raiwanga, two of the Central Division's most vibrant communities, were deserted today, with many people staying indoors. 2 cases of COVID-19 were recorded at the Raiwanga Health Centre yesterday, and health teams are now conducting screenings and testing. Apenisa Wangairandovu reports.
Some residents were seen disregarding advisories, but things changed quickly.
This is one of the many spots the people of this community would gather any time during the day. This morning was no exception.
Some children and adults were spotted here this morning. However, quick action is vital.
With the closing of this health center yesterday, medical teams are now on the ground doing screening and swab tests.
People are now waiting at home to get tested.
This fever clinic remains open to the public despite medical teams now out in the community. However, hardly anyone has turned up here today.
Medical teams moved in quickly to minimize any widespread community transmission.
The mobile screening team are based here today, tasked to screen thousands of Fijians within this community. Tomorrow, they can be somewhere else.
For now, the main focus is to trace as many residents as possible to avoid any further risk of transmission.
Because this shopping center and others along this area are easily accessible to thousands of Fijians living along this corridor, the risk of community transmission is high, given that others from outside this zone also uses these facilities. Apenisa Wangairandovu, FBC News.
Police were out in numbers in the capital city today, ensuring Fijians follow the social distancing rule when shopping. Supermarkets and businesses have put up new markings to ensure people adhere to the 2-meter distance rule, while also ensuring that everyone has a mask on. Kelly Vadala reports.
The main city centre was a buzz again today. Long queues evident outside supermarkets with police presence visible to ensure all rules are followed.
It's good that the officers turned up because some of us are not adhering to the call made by the Health Ministry. We know COVID-19 spreads at the slightest of contact and we can't risk it.
Majority of the shoppers have made more than 3 rounds to the supermarket this week.
So many times the warning has been given, we keep on buying. It's just like the before and yesterday, like last week. Whenever the pandemic is allowed, then we go and buy.
For others, it's all about keeping safe and adhering to the health and safety restrictions.
Marking is fine, thank you.
Police had earlier said that any businesses in public spaces that do not have markings in place for physical or social distancing will be answerable to the law. Kelly Vadala, FBC News.
General practitioners in the Western Division are ready to receive patients who can't access Lautoka Hospital. The Fiji College of General Practitioners confirms its members are versed with COVID-safe measures and are ready to do their part for Fiji. The Health Ministry has called on private practitioners in Nandi, Lautoka and Ba to step up and fill the void left by the closure of Lautoka Hospital.
Patients who normally go to hospitals and health centers can access non-COVID treatment or consultations at private clinics in Nandi, Lautoka and Ba. Government will directly pay the private practitioner for the treatment.
The reception staff will be carefully screening them, spacing them out, seating arrangements, and if we have spare rooms, we sort of have isolation rooms.
Talks are underway for doctors to possibly reduce their charges to ease the financial burden on the government.
We will be happy to discuss and negotiate a reasonable level of payments to our members. My colleagues in Suva are already in discussion with the Ministry of Health officials as well as the Minister for Economy.
Since the announcement last night, more private practitioners have come forward to offer services with assurances that they have COVID-safe measures.
I urge others I haven't spoken to call me. This is an opportunity for us to bring public and private sector together at a time of urgent need for our people.
The Health Ministry is expected to release a list of private doctors offering public health services in partnership with the ministry. Up ahead, 20 schools set up as quarantine facilities, and 10,000 AstraZeneca doses arrive from Australia. Welcome back. 20 schools across the country are ready to be used as quarantine facilities by the Health Ministry if the need arises. Permanent Secretary for Education Dr. Angela Jokhan says they will be using 3 schools in the coming weeks as vaccination sites. Kritika Kumar reports.
4 schools are being used as quarantine facilities, while teachers are part of the contact tracing teams.
Our civil servants are involved, yes, including teachers and some other administrative staff. It's on voluntary basis, and as with any civil servant, this is the time that we need to all come together and help. So I think they're all doing. Whoever wishes can assist, and we know several teachers are involved.
Dr. Angela Jokhan says students will be returning to school only when it is safe.
The decision to reopen schools will be in close consultation with the Ministry of Health and Medical Services and only with their approval.
Permanent Secretary for Health Dr. James Fong had earlier highlighted they are prioritizing non-school isolation facilities so that when schools resume, it is safe for the students.
That judgment depends entirely on the COVID-19 situation at that time. Still, I want parents and students watching to know that getting your children back into the classrooms is an urgent priority for the Ministry of Health.
The Education Ministry is working with Ministry of Health to ensure that when schools reopen, appropriate health measures are in place. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
Fiji has received 10,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine from Australia. High Commissioner to Fiji, John Feeks, says this assistance will cushion the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak on the healthcare system. Christiana Uluwai reports.
This assistance proves Australia remains a true friend of Fiji during this critical time.
I'm glad that the Australian government is able to support your efforts, Minister, in a small way with 10,000 vaccines.
The Australian government has reassured Fiji that more assistance is on its way as the battle against COVID-19 continues.
This is an initial contribution. More will be coming, and some PPE gear. But if there's any message you want to take away from today, it's we are in this together.
The vaccine also included 2,000 kilograms of medical supplies and personal protective equipment.
I believe this is worth more than 250,000 Fijian dollars, about 131,000 US dollars. And also the fact that, as you've alluded, that vaccines, there will be more to come as time goes on, is very helpful to us.
This third COVAX vaccine shipment will provide additional support to Fiji as the healthcare system faces one of the greatest challenges of our time. Christiana Uluwai, FBC News.
Commercial banks have extended the COVID-19 hardship assistance up to September 30th on a case-by-case basis. Association of Banks Chair Rakesh Ram says they're providing repayment holidays, restructures, short-term financing, and are renewing interest rates and repayment arrangements. Kritika Kumar reports.
The banks have voluntarily extended the hardship assistance, which began 12 months ago, to assist its customers.
We are providing repayment holidays, repayment restructures, where possible, short-term financing, review of interest rates, review of repayment arrangements. So all of that incorporates the hardship assistance provided to our customers under COVID.
Rakesh Ram says times are hard and they are also facing challenges like other institutions.
The banks have to manage its own business accordingly, and we are doing whatever we can do to rationalize our operation, streamline our structures.
The banks have to rethink their businesses. They have to give loan to people. They have to play their role, but not in a big way.
The Fiji National Provident Fund has assisted 73 members through the COVID-19 response home loan assistance since last month. The assistance enables members to dip into their preserved account to make mortgage or monthly repayments. Kritika Kumar, FBC News.
Meanwhile, the Fiji National Provident Fund has paid $1.45 million to 6,632 members for the COVID-19 lockdown relief. Acting Chief Executive Viliame Vondonaivalu says the repayment is specifically for people who are unable to go to work due to lockdowns and are not accessing any other relief phases. Vondonaivalu says the government top-up was $294,042, while the FNPF paid out $1.16 million. Members can still apply for the assistance as the final date for applications is next Monday. Fewer people are now visiting the Suva Municipal Market to buy vegetables. While this means declines in revenue for vendors, some say they are happy that Fijians are adhering to the health restrictions. Josiah Nanunga reports.
While others have increased the prices due to lack of supply, Shiv Kumar says he decided to maintain his standard selling price.
Before I used to put a big plate, now it's a small plate. Let's go to $2. Same price, $2 a plate.
Ilya Satui says he will have to strategize better over the next few days, considering our current situation, to ensure his produce does not go to waste.
I always prioritize my business and make sure that customers are not left disappointed. I will make do with whatever produce I buy from farmers, and I normally pick them up at the Sawani border. I stick to my decision to sell a heap of cassava at $5.
Because the vegetables are less, and some people can't supply it from the border. They bring it, it's expensive. Then they buy from like But $20 or $30 dozen, they sell $3, $4 like a bundle.
Most of the vendors are trying to earn enough to buy sufficient produce from their supplier for the coming week. Chosai Nanunga, FBC News.
Coming up in world news, restrictions back in for Greater Sydney. And later on in sports, Bati coach to visit Silk Tails.
Restaurants and cafes that are still operating during this second wave of COVID-19 are now depending on deliveries and online orders. Though the pandemic has shocked many businesses, they were just finding their foot from the first wave of the pandemic. Many entrepreneurs are determined to try innovative ideas. Lina Rees has more.
Despite cash flow taking a huge dip, Rock Cafe barista Joeli Tanua says the online orders have increased.
Business hasn't been that like the usual busy. The only regulars is coming in and having a cup of coffee because it's just takeaways. Yeah, so I'm grateful that I'm still working.
Like many other coffee houses, restaurants and cafes, Mana Coffee is having to diversify in order to continue operations during this trying time.
We did consider the deliveries thing and resourcing that ourselves, and we chose, much like we did last year, to maintain a relationship with Cyberfoods Fiji, so that's their core business, and we put all our deliveries through Cyberfoods, and in some ways that's supporting another small business to keep going.
While encouraging Fijians to adhere to all safety measures and restrictions, Bentley Fisher adds small businesses supporting each other is a great way to work through these trying times. Lina Rees, FBC News.
Fiji Airways and Fiji Link have extended flight cancellations in light of the continued movement restrictions. All domestic Fiji Link passenger flights have been cancelled until May 16, while all international Fiji Airways passenger repatriation flights in and out of Fiji have been cancelled until May 18th. The airline says dedicated freighter services will continue to ensure vital export and import supply chains for Fiji remain intact. Here, the local exchange rates as set early this morning. The Fiji dollar rose against the Chinese yuan, US greenback, PNG kina and the Japanese yen. It decreased slightly versus our two major trading partners, the Aussie and Kiwi dollars, as well as the euro. Commodities market was mixed today. Oil dropped a few dollars at $64 per barrel. Gold rose closing at $1,814 per ounce. And silver closed up at $27.36 per ounce. Sunifa from HFC Bank joins us now with the latest Aussie figures from the money markets.
Thank you, Whitney, and good evening. The Aussie dollar was back in demand today after the Reserve Bank of Australia released its monetary policy statement, confirming that they did not support any rate hikes until 2024. The statement, however, cited upbeat GDP and easing unemployment rate going forward. Meanwhile, the US dollar, which is regarded as a safe haven asset, dipped, hitting its lowest point in 3 days. Global market risk appetite improved, and traders are looking forward to the April jobs report due later tonight for more direction. This was after stats released this morning showed the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits fell below 500,000 last week for the first time since the COVID-19 pandemic started. Elsewhere, the Bank of England said it would slow the pace of its bond buying as it sharply increased its forecast for Britain's economic growth this year. But it stressed it was not tightening monetary policy. That's all from your HFC Bank for this week. Stay safe. Vinaka.
Prime Minister Frank Bainimarama visited the Rewa River Water Scheme project in Viria, Naitasiri yesterday. The scheme aims to provide an improved water supply to approximately 273,000 Fijians in the Central Division. Bainimarama was given an update on the project, which is expected to be completed by mid-next year. The project is being undertaken by the Water Authority of Fiji and its contractors. That is the latest from my end, but coming up after the break, small islands look forward to COP26 outcomes. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Relocating to Suva following the expiry of his land leases was not an easy decision for 53-year-old Ram Sami. Sami, who dropped out of primary school, was a sugarcane farmer in Lambasa, and life in the city was completely different for him. Jeshulal reports.
Sami dropped out of school at the age of 13 to cut sugarcane to help provide for his family and moved to Suva in 2011.
After my land expired, I came back to Suva to work for my children to study in Suva. When I came to Suva, my son and daughter was too small. Then I worked hard before I worked in Motibai Spring Juice Factory.
He did different jobs over the years, and despite the minimum wage rate, was able to save enough to buy a house for his family.
It was very hard for me because the new place, my son and daughter was small, only myself alone working that time. But still myself work hard, then save the money, then I come in Sokoda to buy the house.
He says he faced criticism from his family for taking up odd jobs, but that did not dampen his spirits.
Telling my sons, the daughter and the son also, I every afternoon tell them, please study hard, you have a good man.
Sami closed his poultry business due to decline in income and has been working as a security officer for 6 months now. He says looking at the current challenges, he is happy to have a full-time job. Jeshulal, FBC News.
Attorney General A.S. Syed Qayyum says a lot of emphasis needs to be put on green climate funds. Speaking at a virtual meeting on the main expectations for the outcome of COP26, Syed Qayyum highlighted that innovative financial products are needed. He adds larger countries should use their convening power to bring the private sector to develop plans to ensure resilience. The minister says in the past, some of the larger shareholders resisted the call to have middle-income countries like Fiji get concessional financing through the Asian Development Bank.
Within 36 hours, 1/3 of the value of our GDP wiped off because of a climatic event, and yet we cannot access concessional financing from ADB because the shareholders objected to it.
In our Q&A today, the second wave of COVID-19 has kept Fiji Chemicals busy to meet the demand of hygiene products. We spoke with the director of Fiji Chemicals.
Tell us a little bit about the operations, what it is, how long it's been operating for.
Fiji Chemicals has been around for 46 years. We're primarily a chemical hygiene company. Pre-COVID 2020, our actual business was predominantly tourism. Since COVID, obviously, the tourism industry has virtually collapsed in the country, and we've diversified our income.
Since that collapsed, how has Fiji Chemicals been able to diversify or continue operations?
Like everybody else, we've had to make sacrifices, cut down on hours and that sort of thing. But what we did was we partnered up with the Merch, which is based here in Suva. Since then, we've gone into various customer baselines that we would never have prior to COVID.
How has Fiji Chemicals been able to continue operations in light of the containment areas that have been put in place?
So we partner up with a couple of logistics companies to get our stuff to where they need to go. We also partner up with Cyberfood, so they actually selling the hand sanitizer and the wipes on their deliveries. So, it's collaboration, it's diversification, and that's what companies need to do to keep their head above water during these times.
Quick reminder, we are standing by for the live COVID-19 briefing by the Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, which we will bring to you live. But now time to join Jamie with sports.
Raka, and good evening. Coming up in sports, Hale appeals a sentence. And Delta Tigers hope for the best. This and more after the break. Well, the Kaiviti Silktails are working hard for the top spot in the Ron Massey Cup. Players are also aiming for a place in the Fiji Mbati squad. With the Rugby League World Cup due to be held this year, Fijian Rugby League players will be out to impress national coach Joe Rambele. Venina Rakautonga reports.
Wes Naingama says the Ron Massey Cup is a training ground for the players.
It really is a development pathway. It's a Fiji Mbati, he's said it before, it's a Fiji Mbati pathways, team. And with these guys being exposed to this competition, the Ron Massey Cup week in, week out.
Naingama is looking to get at least 7 players into the Fiji Mbati squad.
We want to be able to filter as many local boys through as we can. And as I said, being part of the program and playing in this competition, being a part of this environment, having the resources that we have, the coaching, the strength and conditioning, the gap between the NRL players and the local players.
FNRL Chief Executive Donna Tambe says they are pleased with the weekly progress by the team.
We're looking to get coach to go across to Australia and have to visit all of the NRL players and also visit the Silktails camp and talk with Coach Wes Naingama regarding the Fijian boys in the Silktails squad.
The Kaiviti Silktails will play round 9 against Hawks tomorrow at 5 p.m. Venina Rakautonga, FBC Sports.
Rewa coach Roderick Singh is worried some players may lose focus during this lockdown period. Singh says it is vital players remain consistent with their training. He adds if this is not done, fitness levels will drop, which will affect them when the season resumes.
Like many teams or many players in this lockdown, they tend to forget about training and they do not work hard, and then the fitness level drops, the concentration level drops. But all I ask my boys is just to train and keep fit, so that whenever the training starts, we are already there. We do not need to start again from the scratch. We want to be somewhere in fitness.
A former Marine who lost both legs in Afghanistan is challenging himself by swimming across the Plymouth Sound. The BBC caught up with him at training.
Swim.
In today's play of the day, Josh Adokar may have grabbed the headlines in NRL last night, but Cameron Munster proved he's the best playmaker around. Munster set up a try for Jerome Hughes after a beautifully executed one-on-one strip. And our quirky sport of the day, Pau, which takes the Taiwanese art of Diablo to another level. That's it from sports, but coming up in Weird and the Wonderful, a Taiwanese man taking his dog paragliding. This and more after the break. A high-pressure system to the far south of Fiji directs a fresh to strong southeast wind flow over the group. The west was mostly sunny and humid. Eastwards from Pacific Harbour to Suva, a mixture of sun and clouds with humid conditions. In the north, partly sunny with a shower or two in places this afternoon. At sea, southeasterly winds 15 to 20 knots, moderate to rough seas, moderate southerly swells. The next low tide is at 10:06 tonight, with high tide at 4:25 a.m. Sunrise will be at 6:22. The outlook for tomorrow, cloudy periods with some showers and possible isolated afternoon thunderstorms over the eastern parts and the interior of the larger islands, elsewhere mainly fine. The outlook for Sunday, cloudy periods with brief showers over the eastern parts and interior of the larger islands, elsewhere mainly fine. And in Fijian Pulse tonight we ask, what is your favorite pastime during this period?
I normally just watch movies to pass time these days.
I just stay home with my family and watch movie all day.
Netflix is what's keeping me occupied during this time.
I mainly just stay home and spend time with my kids, except when I need to make essential runs.
And in the world of the weird and the wonderful, an adorable moment, a pooch wearing goggles while enjoying a windy paragliding ride with her owner in Taiwan. The 3-year-old pet dog named Lara enjoys the beautiful landscapes in Hualien province. The pooch remains calm as she enjoys the rushing wind on her first ever flight. And recapping our main stories, a test for Fiji's health system. Police enforce social distancing and GPs step up to offer services in the West. For these stories and others, you can tune in daily to our sister radio station Gold FM. To our poll question, this week we are asking, do you think some Fijians were lying to get food rations in the Suva-Nosori corridor? Visit our FBC News website to answer. You can send us newsworthy pictures by pictures and videos. Email fbcnews@fbc.com.fj or share it with us via our various social media accounts, including Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. You can also download our FBC app to keep updated with the very latest in news and sports and listen to our 6 radio stations live. Before we go, just a quick reminder that the live COVID-19 briefing by the Permanent Secretary for Health, Dr. James Fong, is expected to begin later this evening. That's your news for now. I'll see you again tomorrow. Until then, stay safe. Modemanda.